All right. So everybody have a good draft weekend. Everybody positive.
Yeah. Super Bowl.
Yes. I love those assessments that they actually do.
Super Bowl.
Oh, we have the best team ever now.
Super Bowl.
Sure, because everybody can. All right. So yeah, if you're a football fan, it's been a good weekend. If you're not, you probably didn't enjoy it as much as the rest of us. So it's very exciting. All right. So we're going to take a look at what we talked about last week. Last week we talked about the children of Israel trying to get through Edom, and the Edomites, who are the descendants of Esau, and not their passage through. So we talked about the characteristics of someone like that. We want to be careful we don't end up like that. So we talked about taking an inventory of your offenses and ask yourself if they belong to you. Make sure you're not taking up somebody else's fight and hating on somebody just because somebody else does. You know, make sure you don't do that. If not, then let the past be the past. And quit, harboring feelings for so long. Make sure you're asking for forgiveness, cleansing it out. Anytime that you have a hard time rooting for someone, a fellow believer, just because of bitterness, you have a problem. If you're rooting against a fellow believer for any particular reason, you have to be very careful to make sure you don't have a problem. And the final two, making sure you don't create people who are from, that mold of make sure you're not running around trying to get others to take up your fight. If it's some personal struggle you're having with somebody, making sure you're not rounding up a posse to go take them down. By the virtue of passive aggressive loves. Right? Because that's how Christians fight. Right? No? You guys are all just aggressive or passive? No, we do tend to fight in a very passive aggressive manner. And if you have done it already, which all of us have done it from time to time, no one in this room is innocent of it. The only one who could be would be someone who has 0 friends. But if you have a friend and you've made this mistake, we all have, where you've just kind of taken your fight to somebody else and tried to gather some support, and make sure that you go kind of cleanse the palate on that and start fresh. So this week we're actually going to move forward into the book of Joshua. This is what I was going to do last week, but ultimately ended up talking to you and having a conversation. So in case you haven't found out, Aaron passed away. He died just after they were refused passage through Edom. Aaron passed away when on the mountaintop passed away. And children wandered a bit longer, having some successes and some failures. There were some good things that they did and some bad things. The reason we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about those final few chapters is because most of that is a redundant nature of what we have been talking about for the last 3 or 4 months. And so I'm choosing to treat all of us like the adults that we are, and that you have retained everything I've said in the last 4 months and figured out an optimum plan for implementing it in your life, correct? Okay, good. So we don't have to go back over that. Yeah, I do that. My wife's a teacher, so I know how that goes. And so, they had some. Moses picks Joshua, the son of Nun, to be his successor, and then Moses dies with the promised land in sight. One of the great tragedies is that Moses actually gets to see it and gets to look at it from a distance, and then his life is taken from him because of his sin. He wasn't allowed to enter, and so we won't spend a lot of time on that. But that's kind of what's happened since we last talked and where we're at now. And so if you want, get your Bible, you can turn to Joshua, the first chapter. And we're going to talk out of Joshua chapter 1 today. We have a little bit of transition now in the wanderings of the children of Israel. They have, the generation that had sinned against God has died off. Moses has passed away. And so basically all of the things impeding their entrance into the promised land is gone now. And so now they stand in position to go take that which God has promised them. And so here's where we find where we're at this morning in the story. It says, the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord. It came to pass that the Lord spoke to Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' assistant, saying, Moses, my servant is dead. Now therefore arise and go over this Jordan, you and all this people, to the land which I'm giving them, the children of Israel. And it says, every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have given to you, as I said to Moses, from the wilderness and this Lebanon as far as to the great river, the Euphrates, and the land of the Hittites and the great sea toward the going down of the sun shall be your territory. So pretty vast, right? I mean, God is explaining a very vast area to Joshua. And it says, no man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I'll be with you. I will not leave you nor forsake you. First question I always ask myself when I read that is, how much do you think Joshua really wanted this job? Right? I mean, typical old Moses. Right? So much so that he ended up sinning against God because he just couldn't take the nature of the people he was leading anymore, and he got all angry. And ultimately, he's seen the difficulties that Moses has had to bear throughout this process, And just from a human, from a human being point of view, how much do you think you want this job? And not only that, but think about the fact that you get to follow Moses. There's an old phrase in sports: you don't want to be the guy that follows the guy. You don't want to be the guy that follows the legend. You want to be the guy that follows the guy who follows the legend. You want to have that one guy go out there like cannon fodder and just take a whooping, and then you get to come in and you get to be the white knight again. Well, here's Joshua. He's coming in and he's replacing Moses. And so you have to ask yourself, how much, and we're going to find out how much God knew that Joshua probably had some concern about this. Okay, because the way he talks to him in just a minute. But he reiterates to him, first of all, the promise that he made with Moses is his promise to Joshua. He said, listen, I promised Moses I was going to get you guys there. Now, they made some mistakes along the way. They sinned along the way. They showed a lack of faith along the way. And because of that, they ultimately paid the price for themselves. But that promise that I made to them didn't die, didn't go by the wayside. And I think, that's one thing that we have to make sure we take to heart initially, is that when God makes a promise, he always sees it through. Now, it may not be in the timing that we have it worked out. It may not be in the way we have it worked out. But that promise ultimately is always seen to an end. Now, in this case, because of their sin against the covenant, Moses had to punish the children who sinned, and God had to punish Moses for his sin, and Aaron for his sin, and Miriam for her sin. But now, the promise to the group remains intact. Because who was the promise to? Israel, right? Initially, the promise for a great nation was to Abraham, right? So all these promises are still going on. Abraham's nation is still growing. All of these things are taking place. All these promises he made along the way are still happening. They just maybe aren't happening in a time frame that you want, or they're not happening in a way that everybody gets to enjoy them, but they're happening. Okay, so his promises are still going along. And so, with a promise like that, you have to ask yourself, is there really any reason at this point for Joshua to worry about much of anything? Right? God says, I'm with you. I got your back. I'm going to see through the promise that I made. Now, if Joshua lives a life according to the covenant, it doesn't seem like there's much worry. But if you look, and I think a lot of this is God answering probably some of the concerns that Joshua had at the beginning, is as we read on in verse 6, it says, be strong and of good courage. For to this people you shall divide as an inheritance the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. And then he reiterates, only be strong and very courageous. All right? And it says that you may observe to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. And then it goes on in verse, as it continues, it says, this book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate in it, that's an important part we're going to talk about later, day and night, that you may observe to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make for your way prosperous, and you will have good success. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So, God reiterates to Joshua 3 times the need for strength and courage. Right? 3 times. Now, he doesn't say, I will provide for you the strength and the courage, necessarily. He just says, now be strong and courageous. That's it. And we're talking about that. Because if he says it 3 times, I'm going to guess it's necessary. Right? So if we take a look at old Webster, this is how Webster defines strong. It says, having or marked by great physical power. Right? We all kind of knew that one. And then it says, having moral or intellectual power. Okay, inner strength. And having great resources as a wealth or talents. So, as a man, when I think of strength, I naturally think of Magnus Magnuson. Magnus Magnuson was a 4-time world's strongest man. Maybe more impressively, he was Iceland's strongest man for a decade, which is very redundant because that would be the strongest man on Earth. But Magnus Magnuson, when you think of it as a guy, you think of someone that can pull a train with a rope. Right? Anybody ever watch World's Strongest Man? I'm addicted. It's the essence of sport. And I've said it 100 times. How far can you carry this heavy rock? That is the essence of sport. Right? There's no rules, there's no umpire throwing flags, there's no, like the NBA, there's no referee deciding if we're not going. But this is a real sport, right? Because they have to pick up a rock, and whoever carries it furthest wins. Right? So Magnus Magnuson was the world's strongest man, and he got hooked on as the world's strongest man. But the reality is you can define strength very differently, right? Right? Margaret Thatcher is someone that you would understand as being a very strong person. Margaret Thatcher, you would define as strength. Now, I'm not sure she could pull a train. I mean, she does have that iron face going right there, but I'm not sure she can pull a train. But she had to have a level of strength that was unlike anything else to do what she did. And so when we understand strength, strength has to be defined on two levels. When you say someone is strong, ultimately inner and outer have to coincide. Now, it doesn't mean that you say someone's strong, therefore they can pull a train. But the reality is, for Magnus Magnusson to get strong enough to pull a train, where did the strength have to start? Right? It had to. He wasn't, well, it is Iceland, so maybe. But he wasn't born like that. He was a man who said, oh, one day I'd like to move a train with my teeth. But guess what? That starts here, and ultimately develops here. For someone like Margaret Thatcher to rise in power and to go through all the difficulty she had to in a world that was very much ruled by men, she had to what? Start in here. But it ultimately became a physical thing. She had to go now walk the walk, right? She had to. She had to go deal with the difficulties that come with ruling people, that come with ruling a nation, that come with being a world leader. And so the reality is that strength is both an inner and an outer reality. Now, it's different how we define it necessarily physically. But to say that strength is just a physical thing or strength is just a mental thing, you're wrong, because at some point your body and mind have to work together. And so then we take a look at it, it says, and also be courageous. So when we look at courage, it says mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. Right? Isn't courage one of your favorite words? I'm sure all of us have very different things when we think of courage. The reality is courage can be seen in a lot of ways, right? That would take courage, right? Or just a complete lack of anything. But to go bungee jump off a bridge takes courage, right? We're going to assume you jump. But that takes courage, right? How about to get up in front of a large group of people and talk and share your life? Does that take courage? All right, so see, if you look at courage very differently, right? You got the classic definition, right? The classic definition. Courage on the battlefield. Willingness to charge when all seems lost. Takes courage. What about this form of courage? Right? All the men in the room? That takes a little courage, right? It takes a little strength. So the reality is that when we take a look at courage, and we can see that there is an understanding that courage is not just an external thing. It has to start inside. You have to develop the understanding that I can do this. And you have to push yourself to do it. Like it says, in the definition, it's the ability to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. That takes courage. The ability to get through it takes courage. But courage is an inside and an outside thing. Because courage has to act, right? It's one thing to go, well, I have the courage to bungee jump off that bridge, no doubt. Then do it. Don't have to. I have the courage. I'm doubting your courage. Right? That's not courage. Right? To stand there and go, well, I could do it if I wanted to, but I don't want to. Come on, we've all done that, right? I totally do it. Would you? Totally. We're doing it this weekend. To do some canning. But the reality is all of those things are different ways to define courage. I know some people, the idea of getting in front of a group of people and sharing something from your heart is terrifying. And it takes extreme courage to do that for you. Some people, it's no big deal. But to others, it's how they would define a courageous act. It doesn't have to be designed to be defined by something on a battlefield or bungee jumping. And so the reality is the mind and body make quite a team, but the truth is they can also be very powerful enemies. Because they can create in you a hypocrisy. Like I said, to say that I have the courage to do that, but the unwillingness to do so, in itself creates hypocrisy and makes people doubt their ability to do it, right? So the mind and body can be a great team, and they have to work together, they have to coincide. When God says to Joshua, be strong and very courageous, he's saying, listen, it's going to require these things for you to do. And really, since the beginning of time, the link between the physical and the mental aspects of obedience are shown. Is that you can't mentally obey. You have to mentally and physically obey. Obedience comes about through, you can't say you believe it if you're not doing it. Right? Because then you don't believe it. There's no belief there. Because then you might agree with it maybe more than you agree with other ideas, but unless belief drives you to action, it's not really belief. It's an interesting idea. It sounds noteworthy, but it's not really what you believe. And so the reality is there is a link between the physical and mental aspects of obedience that have come about since the beginning in a walk with God. It would not have been enough for Israel to go, yes, you're God, we believe in you, but you have to ultimately leave the gates of Egypt at some point and walk away from the meat. And the reason God was so frustrated with them was because they kept looking back. He's like, look, do you believe me or don't you? No, we do. Then look that way. You know what I'm saying? And Paul in Romans says, therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. So it begins with, he talks about what you do physically. Right? What you're doing physically matters. And then it says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So, physically is great, but guess what? You also have to be internally transformed. The reality is strength, the ability to overcome, has to be both an internal and an external act. Courage is both an internal belief and an external act. It takes both in order to be strength, and it takes both in order to be courage. And so when he says to Joshua, be strong and courageous, he's saying be both internally and externally strong, be both internally and externally courageous, because without one of those things you can't be the other. Knowing that Joshua has a very difficult ordeal in front of him. And he's basically calling upon something that is strictly human. And so in order to live a life that God blesses, we have to live a life that has both in it strength and courage. We have to have both of those things in our walk with God. And it's interesting that we have this idea that the Christian life is boring, and I think a lot of times it's because it's how we've sort of defined Christian life. But when you look at Joshua, he's saying, listen, you are going to need strength and courage to do what I'm going to ask you to do. Now, he doesn't say, don't worry, I'll take care of it. He says, Joshua, you are going to need strength and courage. You are going to need those things. You are going to have to present those things to me. I'm not going to do that part for you. And so it says, you're going to have to be strong and of good courage. So let's read it again. It says, be strong and of good courage. For to this people you shall divide as an inheritance the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. So first of all, the first reason he has to be strong and courageous is because he's going to have to divide the land. Right? Because you're going to go get it back. Okay, so guess what? You got to go fight a little bit. Okay? Second thing is only be strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. The book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate in it day and night, that you may observe to do according to all that is written in it. For then it will make your way prosperous, and you shall have good success. So why is the second reason he encourages them to be strong and courageous? Because guess what? Distraction will come. Moses went through it all the time. Right? All the time. Moses is like, well, God wants us to go here. Just a second, we have to go sin. Okay, wait, what? And Moses would have to go back and deal with it. And he's saying, listen, don't turn to the right or the left. Focus on where you're supposed to go and live according to the principles that I placed before you and before Moses. And it's going to take strength and courage. You're going to have to be internally and externally strong and courageous in order to make sure that these children don't turn to the right or left, and make sure that you don't turn with them, because even Moses turned at one point. And he said it's not going to be easy, because they're going to say go left, go right. You have to do what I tell you to do, which is focus on the word that I have put before you, the word that I have given Moses. And then he says, be strong and be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So the third reason he says be strong and courageous is because, guess what? I'm right there. So that should support you a little bit and make you feel a little bit better, right? If God said to you in a dream tonight, be strong and courageous because I'm right behind you. There would be an uplifting to that. There would be a certain posturing to that in your life that would make you go, man, I feel a lot better. And so he's like, hey, be strong and courageous because I'm right there. I'm not leaving you alone. And so he says the strength and courage are required to observe the law and do as the word commands. You have to have strength and courage to do as the law commands. Because life will tell you go this way, or life will tell you go that way. Life will distract you from your direction. Life will distract you from your destination and your target. But the reality is you have to be focused on what the Word is directing you to do and how the Word is directing you to live. Strength and courage are required for the Christian life. Because you have to stand in opposition of what the world is saying all the time. And then he says meditate in the Word. He doesn't say meditate on it. He doesn't say meditate with it. He doesn't say meditate without it. What does God tell him? Meditate in it. Which means surrounding yourself so that your entire life is surrounded by the Word of God and that you are meditating inside of it. That it is everything that you think about, it is everything that you do, it is your focus. And with it you will have great success, and with it you will prosper, but without it you won't have either. It is your key to success. It is your key to making sure that you will be a success in life. Joshua. And only by meditating in it will we be able to observe it fully. Ignorance of the law is not innocence of the law. Right? Just because you didn't know it wasn't the law doesn't mean you get to break it. Right? So what is the only way, and if you don't believe me, plead ignorance next time you get arrested. I'm sure the cop will go, oh, you had no idea. Well, go for it. I'm sorry. But you know now. The reality is that ignorance is not innocence. So if we are ignorant of the law, we are not held innocent of it. So the only way to fully observe, as God is commanding Joshua, is to do what? To meditate in it day and night. To make it a part of our lives. To read it. To spend time soaking it up. To spend time thinking about it. When was the last time you spent time, not in confusion, because depending on your translation, some of us may sit there in total confusion when we read it. But when was the last time you just sat there thinking about it? About the application of it, the observance of it. Where do I apply it in my life? How does that work for me? That is a part of meditating in it. Spending time going, man, that's different. I hadn't really ever read it that way. Or I hadn't ever really taken it in that way. But the Word ultimately will bring better strength and courage because the more you spend time in the Word, the more you realize that you have not been forsaken nor forgotten. And that promise that God made to Joshua, which is, I'm with you wherever you go, is also your promise. Is that God cares about your life. That God cares about where you're at. God cares about what's going on. And He hasn't left you. He hasn't forsaken you. He hasn't dropped you behind. But the reality is that you don't really remember that part unless you're spending time being reminded of that part. But the minute the Word goes out the door, because life gets busy or crazy, the minute our meditation goes out the door, it's funny how then we suddenly start forgetting about the promises that God made. We start forgetting about what we're supposed to be doing. We start forgetting about how we're supposed to live. And all of a sudden it becomes a grand confusion where once there was clarity. You know that Christian life where it's like you take off like a rocket and you just plummet to earth about 6 years later? You know, and you're like, what happened? Well, the reality is that they didn't spend time meditating in the Word. They took off with their salvation. They're like, woohoo, Jesus saved me. And then just went, woo. And that was it. The reality is, as a Christian, you know, our direction should be upward. And the more we focus and meditate, the more our strength comes. And so, as a Christian, you know, our lives should be marked by a deep-rooted courage and strength. Christians should be courageous by nature. Why? Because we have a great gift. We have so much to share. And our lives should be spent in the Word. It shouldn't be something we have to be encouraged to do. But yet it's something we have to be encouraged and reminded to do all the time. Every one of us. Right? We have to be reminded. We shouldn't, but we are. God reminded Joshua. And Joshua was Moses' assistant. And he says, by the way, don't forget the Word. Right? He doesn't go, I will bring up the Word because you know all about it, Joshua, and you're fantastic. No, he says, quick reminder, remember the Word. And Christians should be known as people of strength and courage because we have the greatest backing in the world. We should be a people of strength and courage, not a people of weakness and passivity. It doesn't mean you can't be weak and be a great Christian or be meek and be a Christian. It just means that when it comes to what's on the inside, coming out to the outside should be strength and courage, because behind you, you have the omniscient God, who's made all the promises in the world to you that you should ever need to know. And so you should be living a life with enthusiasm and passion, because you know He's standing right there. And so we should be people of strength and courage in everything we do. I read this morning. It says God doesn't need more lawyers to argue on His behalf. He needs more witnesses to testify for Him. This isn't a conversation about argument over what's right and wrong, or winning someone over because you can out-argue them. This is about being who we're called to be, which is witnesses of how great God has been to us. Testimonies of how great God has been to us. Truth about who He is. Honest definition about what's going on. And being real. And being courageous in that. Real courage sometimes takes the answer, I don't know. Because we're scared of that answer. Because we think, oh, someone's going to walk away from Jesus because I don't know. Except that real courage sometimes is saying, I don't know. But I can tell you what it is to me. But maybe I can't answer that question you have about transubstantiation and the Eucharist in the midst of it. Most of you can do that, I understand. But for a lot of us, that's a struggle. But the reality is, because you can't answer that question, it's not about a lawyer arguing, it's about a witness testifying. That's the truth. And so He's telling Joshua that this is what I expect. And guess what? This permeates down with the way God lives, right? He's ordering Joshua to do these things, but guess what? This isn't just for Joshua. This is for everybody. Because He's saying, listen, children of Israel, just as with Moses, I talked to him, but I expected everybody else to get in line. And now I'm talking to Joshua, and I expected everybody else to get it. Because things are coming up. Difficulties are happening. It's life. Things take place. We have difficult things we go through. The reality is it takes strength and courage, and the Word is at the center of everything we believe as Christians. It's not about fear and the unknown and all those things. Because it could have been very easy. I mean, look where Joshua's standing. He's standing there going, okay, I'm not totally sure I want this job yet. And why are you telling me to be strong and courageous 3 times? Aren't you providing the strength and the courage? God's going, no, you have to provide some of that on your own. You know, the Christian life isn't a life of sedentary observation or selfish amassing, but rather a venture that at its very core requires 2 exclusively human virtues. Strength and courage. Strength and courage. And neither is necessary for passivity. The reality is that Joshua could have just let the status quo be the status quo, but the reality is he's saying, no, you have to be strong and courageous because these things are tough. I'm going to ask you to march around the city a bunch of times. You're going to look like an idiot. And by the way, you are going to have to convince everybody else to get the trumpets and march around the city. Well, that takes strength and courage, right? It takes those things. So he's saying, listen, I'm preparing you for these things. And the reality is, as Christians, we have so many things that God asks us to do in our daily lives, in our offices, in our homes, in our families, that we have to step back and say that while it may be uncomfortable to have that conversation, while it may be uncomfortable to implement that change, we have to, because as a Christian, we have to be strong men and women. We have to be courageous men and women. People can see right through the fact that we're afraid of something, right? We all try to hide our fear, but the truth is anybody who gets close to us can see what fears we have and don't. And if people see that we're terrified about stepping out in faith, people see that we're terrified about sharing our faith, people see we're terrified about being people of strength and courage, they're going to ask questions, well, why are you afraid? If you're telling me that God is as strong and amazing as He is, shouldn't you just by nature be strong and courageous? What's a reputation to God? You know, He didn't care a lot about Moses' reputation. He made Moses do some weird things. He didn't go, well, I don't want a leader to look goofy, so have an assistant throw the tree of water. He went, no, Moses, guess what? You have to go out and look goofy. You know, you have to go out in front of the people and look goofy. And then he also says to Joshua, the reality is look, you can't conquer the promised land without strength, courage, and the Word. But at the center of all of it is the understanding that if we don't have the Word deep in the root of our life, we can't observe it, and we can't live by it, and therefore all those other promises are negated. But we should be a people of enthusiasm and passion and direction and courage and strength. These are exclusively human virtues. Strength and courage. Because we're the creatures with the understanding of we learn to overcome fear not by instinct, but by logic and by understanding. These are our virtues, strength and courage. Don't you guys get all excited when you see a moment in a movie or something where there's like a courageous moment and you're like, you're tearing up, but you don't want to admit you're like, a moment. Just me then? You ever get in the room to sing Brian's song? But you have a moment where you have to overcome those things, and you have to deal with those things, and it's hard. But that's what it takes. And I think for a long time we've had this idea, and I think a lot of times it's because we love these pictures of Jesus with little kids around him. But when you think about his life, every day required strength and courage. To understand that every day of your life you are going to be crucified, and to know that pain and to understand that, but yet get up and love all those people who are going to hurt you, takes what? Strength and courage. To be able to carry the cross and go through everything he went through, knowing that with one snap of his fingers could have not dealt with it, takes courage and strength. So if we're trying in all of our lives to be like Jesus, which everyone who wears the bracelet should be doing, if you are trying to do what Jesus did, guess what's at the center of that? Strength and courage. And that's what it takes. But like I said, it gets back to what we really believe. Do we believe that God is everything he says he is? Do we believe that the Word is everything it says it is? Or don't we? And so this morning we're just going to have a very brief exercise. I'm going to give you 10 seconds on this little brief exercise. First of all, take a moment, define as a Christian life. Okay, think in your head. You close your eyes, it helps you focus. Alex, probably close your eyes. You need to take a moment. Take a moment to define a Christian life that requires strength, courage, and being in the Word. All right, think about what that looks like in your head. Think about what you would be doing. Think about the things you'd be saying. Think about the things that you would do on a daily basis. Everybody have a nice picture? Okay, now, think of the opposite. Okay? Now take a moment to define a Christian life that doesn't require strength, courage, and a life in the Word. Okay? Take a minute. Think about that life. Okay, everybody got it? Now, which one is your testimony? All right, so let's look at it. Father God, we just thank you so much for your love and the way that you spoke to your servant Joshua. And may all of us be Joshuas. May we all be those who answer the bell to strength, courage, living a life daily in the Word. May we be moved by it. May we be touched by it. May it cause in us an inner confidence, knowing that you are with us and that you walk with us, and we don't walk with fear, we don't walk with concern, because whatever happens to us, whatever man can do to us, is nothing if we live a life that brings glory and honor to you. May we be challenged this week to defining our testimonies. In your name. Amen. All right, short and sweet. Have a good week. All right.